fleet intact, to keep it as far as humanly possible to the numbers we've got now, because it is an all-important part of the northeast of Scotland, to the coastal villages. If we look at the pelagic fleet, a lot of it belongs to Gardenstown, Rosehearty, Inverality, Peterhead, Fraserburgh. Another large part belongs to the islands in Shetland, and we've got 3 Northern Irish vessels and 1 from the west coast of Scotland. So the fleet is very important to the coastal communities of Scotland. Where do we go from here? Well, we see the market expanding daily. In the space of the last 2 years, 2 years ago, one would never ever visualise that Japan would be taking the tonnages of fish it's now taking. I mean, in the space of the last year, Japan has taken from Norway and Scotland combined tonnages probably reaching up as high as 130,000–40,000 tonnes. The tonnages of fish coming ashore, if we look at it in comparison to 30 years ago. 30 years ago was looking at a massive catch as far as herring or mackerel was concerned, would have been 200 crans of fish. Now we're looking at vessels coming into Fraserburgh and Peterhead with catches in excess of 500 tonnes. Now 500 tonnes related back to crans comes out at 32,500 crans of fish, which was a massive day's fishing at any time in the history of herring fishing, when we had 300 and 400 and 500 vessels landing into Fraserburgh and Peterhead. 32,500 crans would have been considered a very big fishing then. Now it's achievable by 1 vessel. For a year and a half we launched this vessel, and for three of us it started a second phase of certainly my life at sea. I finished up as skipper again, but 2 of them who had previously been carpenters finished up as skippers as well. Again, we started off fishing locally, sprats in the Murray Firth, prawn trawling, etc., etc. And again events overtook us. The sprat fishery in the Murray Firth just totally finished. Again it was a move back into bigger vessels, this time pursuing sprat fishing on the west coast of Scotland and down in the northeast coast of England, with prawn trawling as the main backup to that during the rest of the season. That again dried up, and in the early, 1970, with the first new vessel built, she was 76 foot long, built mainly for herring fishing. That was followed in 1972 with another vessel for herring fishing, but with a twin adaptability, namely beer trawling and pursuing. That carried on during the early part of the 70s up to about 76. And again, with the advent of larger vessels appearing on the scene, we were forced to move into a different scene again. And that was when we bought from Sweden one of the first larger vessels to Scotland, 150 odd feet. That took us then into a different scenario altogether, opened up Europe for us for landing, opened up the channel fishing for mackerel in the winter seasons, with all the market possibilities down there. It opened up Holland, it opened up France, and that carried on until 1980, when for one reason or other, which at the time was very important but now was seen to be a stupid mistake on the part of the government, they lost 1 million tonnes of mackerel on paper, and we were forced to, our quotas were cut from 360 tonne a week to 90, which quite honestly just was not viable. The vessel was sold to South Africa, another vessel purchased, a smaller vessel more adaptable to the various different types of fisheries that was available at that time. And unfortunately I had a bad accident and finished up spending 2 years ashore. Since then, the pattern is more or less settled down now that we fish for mackerel for roughly 6 months a year, and we fish for herring 3 months a year. And the other 3 months a year, if we're not tied up to the quayside, we fish for sand eels and stuff like that. One of the outcomes of all this really has been that because of the fact we were pushed from pillar to post with very little input into decision making, I became involved in the latter part of the 70s in politics, or the politics of fisheries as we call it. I became chairman of the Pelagic Association in 1980, but it was very obvious after a very short period of time that for an active fishing skipper to be chairman of that particular association was physically impossible. To carry out 2 jobs successfully was something that just was not possible. So during the 80s I spent most of the time as being vice chairman, and we were very fortunate during that period as well that we had, first of all in Sandy Baird, second with John West, probably 2 of the best chairmen that the association's ever had. Unfortunately again in 1989, through the untimely death of John West and the fact that my old accent was playing up pretty badly again, I got the opportunity to become chairman of the Pelagic Association again in May 1989, and that's where I am at the present moment. And that then leads us into a different scenario altogether, where now, whilst we can't change the government decisions, we do have the power of a lot of input into decision making, rightly or wrongly, but we at least feel that we're part of a system now, something that's, quite honestly, we haven't felt for a very, very long time. One of the things we've got to bear in mind is the fact that whilst during the 60s, the 70s, there were massive stocks of fish, but the methods of catching were, in present day terms, crude to say the least. What we've got now is a fleet with an awesome catching capability. So as regards stock nowadays, the stock is probably just as healthy as it was 20 years ago. But due to climatic changes and various different changes there's been, the stock is further offshore and doesn't come to the shore so often as it used to do in the past. And we have to be very, very careful now that we don't overfish the stocks. And it is something that in the last 2 or 3 years is starting to become abundantly clear. We do have the support now of fishermen, we do have the support of scientists, we have the support of politicians. And okay, things are maybe not so easy at the moment. We've joined the EEC, but unfortunately Britain is an island. It's cut off from the rest of Europe. It doesn't, its geographical position means that the market capabilities of the processing industry in Europe are limited insofar as that the cost of transport to the mainland of Europe is prohibitive. But these are things that will sort themselves out as time goes on.